sadness in a buffalo head, actually. And so I found that really inspiring, but his brow is the brow of a gorilla. And actually, as I'm drawing this, there was one of the guys came in, and the animator, Bruce Johnson, said, "Glenn, what's the piece going to look like?" And I'd been working 6 months and trying to figure it out. And I said, "I don't know." I started really saying exactly what I'm saying to you here. I said, "I like that buffalo," and I actually had a buffalo head on my wall. And
which his wife was not happy when he brought home.
And he should have, and I also had a wild boar's head on the wall. He's got a muzzle like a boar with these tusks that come out there. But I like this beard of the buffalo down at the bottom. But the crown of a gorilla. The horns were sort of a combination of a variety of horns. I had a whole bunch of different ones that I was studying. And I was thinking, oh man, how's anybody gonna believe she's gonna fall in love with this guy? I gotta put something a little bit more cuddly on him. Maybe the mane of a lion here. But maybe something friendlier. I'll put cow ears on him. That really helped a lot. But ultimately, there's a prince trapped inside, and it's the eyes of a human. You know, that's really the key to any of the characters that you're animating is the eyes. If you're going to make a mistake, don't make it on the eyes. That's where everybody's looking.
Well, and you've also said that when you were doing some of the most intense animation at Beast, when he's deciding to let Belle go, that all you could basically work with were his eyes.
Yeah, it was very frustrating. It reminded me of when I started at Disney, and I heard that the secret of Disney animation is sincerity. And I thought, well, how do you do that? How do you draw with sincerity? And I remember thinking, do you press harder on your pencil? And I push darker and darker on these. And I found out that no, it's actually, to believe in the characters that you animate. You have to believe in them. But even years later, I still found myself, at that moment, pushing just harder and harder on the pencil, still trying to infuse some feeling.
You mentioned there was one other big inspiration for Beast, and that was Rodin.
Oh, well, yeah. There was this day at work where I wanted to animate the transformation sequence, and I'd been looking forward to it, and finally came down. We had no time left on the movie. I had 1 week left, and I was so frustrated. This was like, I felt like I was born to do this moment, but there's no time. And Don Hahn, who was the producer, came in and he said, "Glenn, what's the problem?" I don't have time to do this, Don. I mean, I've got so many ideas about this. He said, "That's okay, just hang on. Take whatever time you need. I'll figure it out. We'll push some schedule back. Just make it work. That's going to last. Make it last." So I left work that day and just went to the Norton Simon Museum in Pasadena with my sketchbook. I was looking for some way to do this transformation. And the first thing I saw was a Rodin sculpture of the Burghers of Calais. And I started to draw that sculpture, and I went around to the back, and I loved the way that Rodin did these big canyons in his back. And I've always thought of animation as sculptural drawing, and as I drew that, I just walked around and I could see Beast turning in space. And I never even went into the museum. I just did that and then went back and started animating. And I'm really thankful to Don for that.
And to Auguste. The other character we talked about your drawing was Tarzan, who was different from both of the previous ones. And once again, one of the inspirations again came from your family, which was your son's skateboarding.
Yeah, well, see, I've been watching, at first I animated Tarzan swinging on some vines, and I found it very static. Like, he's just hanging on, and the vine's doing all the work. And it just wasn't very interesting to me. And I'd come home, and Max kept watching all of these extreme sports videos. And he was also, we were in Paris at the time, and he would be going to the Trocadero and skateboarding with his friends. And so I started thinking, what if Tarzan was like more of an extreme sports guy? What if he was a tree surfer, you know, so that he could actually slide down the moss on these trees in the jungle? And so I based Tarzan's movement on Max, and just that whole genre of movement. It was so much more fun, and giving him the dreadlocks. And I remember one day, and I'd been animating Tarzan grabbing some vines with his toes, and I thought, man, I don't know, am I pushing it too hard? Is anybody going to believe that? So I came home that day, and my wife Linda was there, and we were sitting on the couch, and I was massaging her feet, and she said, "So how'd the day go?" I said, "I don't know. I don't think anybody's going to believe that Tarzan could actually grab these vines with his toes." And then I looked at Linda's feet. I said, "Linda, you've got Tarzan's toes." And she does. And Linda said, "Take your shoes off, Linda." You've got like gorilla toes.
See, when you're married to an animator, it's nothing but pleasure.
But so I took the camera right then, and she made fists with her feet and her toes, and with pretty little red painted toenails, and I brought them all into work, and we put them up there, and I said, "Look, if my wife can do this with her toes, you know, where she's like could go take tomatoes in a grocery store, and we can animate Tarzan that way." And, I am really thankful that Linda has the enormous
Prehensile toe, yes. You also said that that last sequence of Tarzan beating his chest and doing the classic Tarzan pose was something you thumbnailed in a taxi cab?
No, the one I thumbnailed in the taxi cab was where Tarzan, I was going to see a volleyball game of Max's, and I was racing there, but when you're animating, you're never not thinking about your animation. You're always living it. And I was in the cab driving there and sketching the moment where Tarzan's pulling the glove off of Jane's hand and doing sketches of the hand and thinking about this moment. And actually that moment when Tarzan looks at Jane for the first time, I was thinking, when had I experienced that in my life? And I was thinking, it's kind of like Adam seeing Eve as this flesh of my flesh, bone of my bones moment. And he'd never seen another human. And I remember when Claire, our little girl, was born, holding her, just a few seconds old, and holding Claire and just seeing my face in her face. And I was amazed. It was like a little mirror. And so that moment there when Tarzan is looking at Jane is really like me looking at Claire. So that's what I was trying to animate.
Okay, one of the things you heard Glen mention was the idea of animation drawings should be sculptural. And since the early part of his career, he's been involved with experiments with CG to make things more dimensional, more sculptural. So we're now going to look at a few clips of this work culminating in some of the work for Tangled.